A few years ago, I was a single mom who called a handyman for literally everything. I am not exaggerating. If something needed fixing, I called someone. Today, I run 4 short-term rentals in 4 different states by myself. I know my tech stack cold, and last weekend, I replaced a kitchen faucet in my own house because the water pressure seemed low. I did all of those things starting at 50 years old. So if there's a voice in your head telling you it's too late to learn something big and new, I really want you to hear this one. Here's the story that most of us absorb somewhere along the way, that learning is for the young, that by the time you hit your late 40s or 50s, who you are is who you are, and taking up something brand new, something that you'd be genuinely bad at for a little while, is a little embarrassing, something you're supposed to be past. I believed a version of that too. I had spent 30 years in engineering and construction. I had run large capital projects and led teams, and I was very good at what I did. And that's exactly what makes starting over hard, by the way. The more competent you already are at one thing, the more uncomfortable it might be to be a total beginner at another, especially at my age. Nobody likes to fail in public at 50, but I want to make the case today that the failing isn't the problem. The failing is the whole point. Let me give you the most ridiculous example that I have. During COVID, my son and I got a little crazy and bought a boat. They say a lot of things about buying boats, right? And to this day, he loves that boat. So honestly, best money I've ever spent. But that boat came with 2 things that I had no idea how to do. One, I learned to wake surf in my 50s, and that was pretty darn cool. But 2, and this is the one that humbled me, I had to learn to drive a trailer. Let me be clear. I did not learn to drive that trailer gracefully. There was backing up. There was backing up again. There was at one point a very kind soul in a parking lot who I am fairly sure was quietly praying for me and definitely laughing at me, but he did help me. But I learned. And here's what struck me later when I actually sat down and thought it through. I was a grown woman, well past the age where anybody expects you to pick up big new habits and be really bad at them in front of people. But both times, the being bad at it was the whole point. That's where the growth was hiding. Because here's what I've come to believe. Joy doesn't come from ease. It comes from engagement, from deciding that you're going to figure something out and then awkwardly and imperfectly figuring it out. There's a specific kind of pride that you feel when you go to sleep at night, having tried something new and scary and slightly beyond you. It's different from the comfort of doing what you're already good at. It's better. And it turns out you don't age out of it. If anything, it gets more valuable because you have more to draw on and less to prove. It's super fun, actually. So when people ask me how I built a rental business in my 50s with no real estate investing background, part of the answer is boring: research, systems, discipline, hard work. But part of it is this: I was willing to be a beginner again. I got brave. I was willing to back the trailer up 40 times. Let me show you how that played out in the actual business, because it's the same muscle. When I set up my first property, I had never done any of it. And I'll be honest with you, it took about 40 hours just to set up the listing for that first property. 40. That's pretty normal. It was tedious. And there were absolutely moments where I wondered if I'd bitten off more than I could chew. I had to learn the software. I had to learn how the calendars talk to each other, how dynamic pricing works and what it even was, how the smart locks work and how they connected into everything. Now, I've always been a bit of a nerd. Way back in my corporate days, I fought so hard to bring dashboarding to management that my boss actually banned the word dashboard from meetings. True story. So the tech didn't scare me, but the sheer amount of new was a lot. And here's the thing. I did hard, awkward, front-loaded work. And now that same business runs in about 5 to 10 hours a week. Like, that's not very much. The ease on this end was bought with the effort on that end. There was a lot of effort at first, but it's super easy now. There's no version where you skip the beginner phase and still get all the calm and wonderfulness at the end. I looked for it, it isn't there. So let me talk directly to the person that this is really for. Maybe you spent a whole career getting good at things, and now you've got time and capacity, capability, and nowhere obvious to point it. Maybe you're a few years from retirement and quietly afraid that the learning window has closed, and what are you going to do now? Maybe you just watched a younger person breeze through something and thought, I could never pick that up now. You can. I'd point out to you the woman who was white knuckling a boat trailer at 50 something for the first time and tell you that discomfort is temporary, but the capabilities are permanent. You learn the hard thing that you're bad at for a bit, and then you own it forever. I went from calling a handyman from every single thing to being the person who fixes the faucet myself or unclogs the toilet or sprays for bugs or whatever it is. And that didn't happen because it was special. That happened because I was willing to try and willing to be bad at it for a while. And can I tell you the bonus that I never saw coming? Taking those chances in my 50s has brought my son and I way closer. He and I bought that boat together. He's proud of me for doing it. He brings his friends to the lake house and uses it. And none of that happens if I decide that I'm too old to learn to back up a trailer. There's a through line here that I think really matters. My son is 25 now, and this year he bought his own first home with roommates to help cover the mortgage. At 25, he's already an investor. I didn't hand him that. What he absorbed watching me was a way of seeing things, that you don't wait for the life that you want to feel safe and ready. You build it on purpose, and you start before you're ready. That's the real inheritance, not the properties, the posture. So whatever the hard new thing is for you, a business, a skill, a whole second act, I would just gently say, start before you feel ready. Learn it now. Be a beginner for a while. Back that trailer up 40 times. If the hard thing that you're circling is short-term rentals specifically, I built a free workshop that lays out the path in order the way that I wish someone had handed it to me when I was figuring it out the hard way. It's at strjumpstart.com. It's linked below. And if you needed to hear today that it isn't too late, subscribe and stay a while, because that's most of what I talk about here and how to run a great short-term rental business. Build something real at whatever age you're starting. I'll see you in the next one.